In this video, I'm going to go over the color palette I made for the first painting I shared on social media. The series is linked in the description below. If you watched the first few videos on my fairy painting series, you already know of the ups and downs that led to these pre-selected colors. I mixed these first three colors to match or cover the marker bleed. I tried to make them as close to the color palette I had first envisioned while sketching this piece as I could. You can watch this series to learn more about how the marker bleed got there if you're interested. Once I had the colors that worked best to fix the original mistake, I started playing with what I wanted my underpainting and sky to be. This is when I initially added water to the acrylics. I had just learned of the technique a couple of days before starting this project and thought it would be fun to play with. I'm definitely not using the best paper in this example, and since I used too much water to start, you can see where the page started to rip a bit with my brush strokes. I thought the purple was a bit one-dimensional anyway, and I knew I needed some more depth to cover the marker lines, so I tried again and added some yellow this time. It started to remind me of a sunset, and I knew I had something going. I was thinking maybe I would bring the same yellow into the mushrooms to try to tie things together, so I swatched my red-orange next to those colors as well. I added a blue that I had pre-mixed for a bit of dimension and cover-up. Looking more at the light blue, I wondered if it could capture the silvery, shiny effect I was hoping to get with the wings of the fairy, and I wanted to make sure the color of the fairy wasn't going to clash with that tint. It is interesting in this video how the lighting makes the pinkish orange from the top three swatches look much more orange and light when placed next to the light blue. If you know of any tricks for lighting to avoid the effect, let me know. Overall, I liked how things were flowing so far, but I knew I wanted the majority of the piece to be a very woodsy, green and brown with a lot of dimension and detail. I wanted to get a feel for the different types of shades and tints I wanted to use for those hues. The initial green swatch that I laid down wasn't my favorite, so I moved on to some of the browns while I thought about what greens I was going for. I loved the third green swatch, and I knew that other two would do a good job of making that one pop more by adding highlights and low tones. Working on the turkey-tail mushrooms on the tree was probably my favorite part of this painting altogether. It was challenging and fun to try to find the right angle for each mushroom to demonstrate the perspective of the painting. I needed a lot of subtle shading for this part, with good tone range for the browns. The last swatch is definitely my favorite tone of brown I've mixed to date. I actually made a bunch of it to save for future paintings. While I was on a roll for the different tones, I moved into my highlights and low tones for the end of the painting. I wanted a reference when I went in at the end to add the final details, and I knew I didn't want to use plain black or plain white to finish anything off. So I mixed up the lightest and darkest browns and purples I could while still picking up the color and added a tone of each as well. I realized I might want some kind of reference for the red mushrooms and mixed a few options there. Do you notice the same effect of the lighting? The video doesn't display the different shades very well with the reds either, and I'm trying to figure out why. If you have any tips, let me know in the comments. As I mentioned earlier, I planned to make a shimmery effect through the wings of the fairy, and I picked a few gel pens that I thought would help create that effect. I'm not proficient in multimedia work, but I figured since I only plan to make this a print, it will work out fine in the end. Finally, I added a small color wheel to the empty space at the top. This achieved two things for me. One, it filled the space that was driving me crazy. And two, it gave me a visual for how the colors would flow together, including the gel pens I plan to use the most. I'm gonna be honest, when I worked on painting in my past, I didn't pay much attention to color theory. This is actually the first time I've intentionally tried to plan a color palette, and here's the final result. I know I still have a lot to learn, so if you have any feedback or resources regarding color theory, or you want to share how you plan your color palettes, please let me know. Thanks for watching, and as always, I appreciate you being here.